The Inside Story of Our Body's Most Underrated Organ, by Giulia Enders. Introduction. When she was 17, a young woman named Giulia Enders developed a small, strange sore on her right leg. It appeared for no reason, and it stubbornly refused to heal. A month went by, and her doctor was stumped, prescribing a cream that did nothing. Soon, her entire leg was covered in these sores. They spread to her other leg, her arms, her back. Sometimes they would appear on her face. For a whole year, she hid her body, wearing tights in the middle of summer to stop the weeping sores from showing through her clothes. The doctors were no help. They gave her vague diagnoses, asked her about stress, and hinted that perhaps the problem was all in her head. Frustrated and feeling alone, she decided to do what we all do when the experts fail us. She turned to her own research. Late one night, she stumbled across a medical report about a man with an almost identical skin condition. And she found a clue. His problem had started right after he took a course of antibiotics. Suddenly, a light went on. Just a few weeks before her first sore appeared, she too had taken antibiotics. And a thought began to form, a question that would change her life, and eventually, the way millions of people see their own bodies. She thought to herself, what if the problem isn't on my skin at all? What if the problem is inside me? What if the antibiotics did something to my gut? From that moment on, she stopped treating her skin like a skin problem and began treating it as the skin of someone with an intestinal problem. She changed her diet, cut out certain foods, and experimented with good bacteria. And slowly, miraculously, her skin began to heal. That experience lit a fire in her. It taught her a profound lesson: knowledge is power. It sent her to medical school, and it led her to write a book that would take the world by storm. A book that has sold more than 4 million copies and has become a New York Times bestseller, not because it's a diet book, but because it's an adventure story. Today, we're going on a journey into that story. We're going to explore the world revealed in Giulia Enders' masterpiece, Gut, the Inside Story of Our Body's Most Underrated Organ. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you will never think about your own body, or that quiet, mysterious organ working tirelessly inside you, in the same way again. You'll understand that you are not just a person. You are a planet, teeming with life. And the key to your health, your mood, and even your thoughts might just be hidden in the last place you'd ever think to look. Book summary. Most of us walk through life with a certain picture of ourselves. We think of the brain as the command center, the brilliant CEO in our head that runs the entire operation. We see the heart as the engine, the loyal, tireless pump that keeps the whole system alive. But what about the gut? For most people, the gut is the awkward, embarrassing relative we try not to talk about at the dinner table. It's good for little more than a few gurgles, the occasional bit of steam, and the daily trip to the toilet. We're not proud of it. In fact, most of us are a little ashamed of it. Giulia Enders asks us to look again. To look closer. She tells us that if we could see beyond what is visible to the naked eye, we'd realize that we're underestimating one of the most extraordinary and intelligent organs in our entire body. The gut, she reveals, is a universe unto itself. It contains 2/3 of our immune system. It produces over 20 unique hormones. It even has its own nervous system, a second brain so complex and independent that it can function even if its connection to the brain in our head is completely severed. Our journey into this hidden world doesn't start in the belly, though. It starts in a place we think we know intimately: our mouth. The mouth, Enders explains, is the grand gateway to the gut. And it's full of secrets. If you explore the inside of your cheeks with your tongue, you'll feel 2 tiny bumps opposite your upper molars. These aren't from biting your cheek, they are the parotid papillae, the openings for your salivary glands. These glands produce over a liter of saliva every single day, and that saliva is far more than just water. It's basically filtered blood, containing hormones, immune system products, and even a natural painkiller called opioorphin. Opioorphin, discovered only in 2006, is more powerful than morphine. We only produce a tiny amount, of course, but it's enough to make a small sore in your mouth, which would be excruciating on your elbow, feel manageable. This is why a sore throat often feels better after a meal. Chewing stimulates the production of this amazing oral painkiller. But saliva isn't just for comfort, it's also for defense. The glands shoot out microscopic nets made of proteins called mucins. These nets, like something out of a superhero movie, trap bad bacteria before they can harm our teeth and gums. Further back, at the root of your tongue, lies what Enders calls an alien landscape of pink domes. These are your lingual tonsils, part of a ring of immune tissue that encircles your entire throat. This is the body's primary training camp for the immune system. Every time you eat, drink, or even breathe, this tissue samples tiny particles from the outside world. Inside, an army of immune cells is being trained, learning to distinguish between a harmless piece of apple and a dangerous virus. This is where your body first learns to protect itself. From the mouth, our food begins a remarkable journey down the esophagus. We might think of it as a simple tube, but it's a master of movement, performing a move that break dancers call the worm. It executes a perfect wave, widening to let food pass and closing behind it, ensuring that nothing goes back up. This process is so automatic, so independent of gravity, that you could eat a piece of cake while standing on your head, and it would still arrive safely in your stomach. And the stomach itself is a marvel of design. We often think of stomachache as pain low in our belly, but the stomach actually sits much higher, starting just below your left nipple. It's not just a simple pouch, it's cleverly lopsided. The shorter right-hand side acts like an express lane for liquids, allowing water to flow straight through to the next station. But solid food plops against the longer, larger side, where it's held back to be churned and broken down. The stomach is essentially two specialized organs in one. It's here, in this lopsided pouch, that the real work begins. The stomach can churn a piece of steak for up to 6 hours, using powerful acids and muscular contractions to grind it into tiny particles. Only when the particles are small enough do they pass through the gatekeeper, a small sphincter muscle, into the next, and most important phase of digestion. This is where we enter the engine room of the body, the small intestine. If you could shrink down and take a tour of your own small intestine, you wouldn't find the dark, gloomy tunnel you might expect. Instead, you would find yourself in a breathtakingly beautiful world, a soft, pink, velvety landscape that is surprisingly clean and almost entirely smell-free. The true genius of the small intestine is its architecture. It's a master of maximizing space. The inside is covered in massive folds. On top of those folds are millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. And if you zoom in even further, you'd see that each and every cell on those villi is covered in its own microscopic protrusions, called microvilli. The author gives us a stunning sense of scale. If you were to take the small intestine and iron out all of its folds, all of its villi, and all of its microvilli, it would cover an entire tennis court. All of this is packed neatly inside your abdomen. But why does it need all this surface area? Because this is where the outside world truly becomes a part of you. The goal of digestion is to take something from the outside, an apple, a piece of bread, a steak, and break it down into molecules so tiny that our body can absorb them and use them for energy. Nature has a beautiful simplicity to it. Everything we eat, whether it's a plant or an animal, is made from the same basic building blocks: sugars, fats, and amino acids. Our small intestine is lined with digestive enzymes that act like tiny pairs of scissors, snipping our food apart until it's reduced to these fundamental components. A piece of whole grain bread, which doesn't taste sweet, is just a long, complex chain of sugar molecules. The enzyme scissors snip that chain apart, and what you're left with is pure sugar, which your body can absorb for a slow, steady release of energy. A candy bar, on the other hand, is already broken down. It gets absorbed almost instantly, which is why you get that sudden rush, followed by a crash. Fats are treated differently. They are so valuable, so energy-dense, that the body has a special system for them. Unlike sugars and proteins, which go into the bloodstream and straight to the liver for processing, fats are absorbed into a completely separate network, the lymphatic system. This system is like the quiet sidekick to the bloodstream. And all the fat you eat, whether it's from healthy extra virgin olive oil or from cheap French fries, is collected by this system and delivered directly to your heart, completely bypassing the liver's initial detoxification process. This is a startling revelation. The quality of the fats you eat has an immediate and direct impact on your heart and blood vessels. Good fats, like those in cold-pressed olive oil, act like a soothing balm. Bad fats, Enders warns, are delivered straight to your cardiovascular system without any quality control. Once these building blocks are absorbed, they are sent off to every one of the trillions of cells in your body. A sugar molecule from an apple might end up in a skin cell on your arm, where it's burned for energy. This process releases a tiny bit of heat, and when it happens in countless cells at once, it's what keeps your body at a constant, warm temperature. The food you eat literally becomes the warmth you feel. But what happens to the parts of our food that our own enzymes can't break down? The tough fibers from vegetables, for instance? This is where the story takes a turn, moving from our own body's machinery to the incredible, invisible world living inside us. These leftovers travel from the small intestine into the large intestine, and it's here that we meet the true stars of the show, our gut microbes. If you thought the architecture of the small intestine was impressive, prepare to be amazed. Our gut is home to around 100 trillion bacteria. To put that in perspective, you have about 10 times more bacterial cells in your body than you have human cells. By cell count, you are only 10% human. Your microbiome, this city of microbes, weighs up to 2 kilograms, as much as your brain. We are not just individuals, we are, as Enders so beautifully puts it, entire ecosystems. For most of history, we've thought of bacteria as the enemy, germs to be feared and destroyed. But the vast majority of these creatures are not only harmless, they are absolutely essential to our survival. We have co-evolved with them over millions of years, and we live in a deeply symbiotic relationship. The story of this relationship begins at the moment of our birth. As an unborn baby, you live in a completely sterile world, the womb. You have no bacteria at all. Your first encounter with this microbial world is what Enders calls a bacterial baptism. During a natural birth, you are coated in your mother's protective vaginal and gut flora. These are the founding fathers of your own personal microbial colony. They are your first line of defense, your first immune system trainers. A baby born by cesarean section, however, misses this baptism. Their first contact is with the skin flora of doctors and nurses, and the bacteria of the hospital environment. It can take these babies months, or even longer, to develop a normal gut population, and studies have shown they have an increased risk of developing allergies, asthma, and obesity later in life. After birth, breastfeeding continues this process. Breast milk is a marvel. It contains not only perfect nutrition but also special sugars that we, as humans, cannot digest. They aren't for the baby, they are for the baby's bacteria. Specifically, they are food for a group of bacteria called bifidobacteria. These bacteria are crucial for training the infant immune system, and children who have low levels of them in their first year have a significantly higher risk of being overweight later. By the age of 3, your gut flora has stabilized into a relatively mature and unique population. It's like a bacterial fingerprint. If you were to take a swab from your dog, scientists could likely identify you as the owner just by matching the bacterial signatures. Your gut flora is a living record of your life, where you've been, what you've eaten, and who you've kissed. So, what are all these bacteria doing down there? They are, in essence, a second digestive system. They feast on the things we can't digest, like the fiber in vegetables. In return, they provide us with incredible benefits. They manufacture essential vitamins for us, like vitamin B12 and vitamin K. They break down toxins. But most importantly, they produce special nutrients for the cells that line our gut, keeping the gut wall healthy and strong. These bacteria provide us with about 10% of our daily energy. After 9 meals, your 10th meal is, in a way, on the house, a gift from your microbes. Scientists have even discovered that our gut bacteria can be sorted into 3 main types, or enterotypes, dominated by different families of bacteria: Bacteroides, Prevotella, or Rumenococcus. Each type has different strengths. The Bacteroides type, for example, is brilliant at extracting the maximum amount of energy from food. People with this enterotype might gain weight more easily than others, even if they eat the same amount of food, because their bacteria are just that much more efficient. The Prevotella type is better at producing vitamin B1, which is crucial for our nerves. This new science is revealing how a person's microbiome can influence their tendency toward obesity. There are a few theories. The first is what we just discussed: the chubby bacteria that are just too good at extracting calories. Another theory has to do with low-grade inflammation. An unhealthy diet, particularly one high in bad fats, can cause the gut wall to become slightly leaky, allowing bacterial toxins to enter the bloodstream. This puts the body in a constant state of low-key infection, which in turn signals the body to store more fat. But perhaps the most radical idea is that our gut bacteria might influence our cravings. When you have a sudden, desperate craving for a chocolate bar or a bag of chips, is that you? Or is it your gut microbes? The theory is that different gangs of bacteria crave different foods. A population that thrives on sugar might be able to send signals to your brain that make you crave sugar. They might even reward you for eating it by producing mood-altering substances. This is still a new area of research, but it opens up a mind-bending possibility. We are not just feeding ourselves, we are feeding the trillion-headed creature inside us. Of course, not all microbes are friendly. The book also introduces us to some of the bad guys, and their stories are like something out of a thriller. Take Salmonella. Enders traces its journey from a tortoise doing its business in a sack of grain in Africa, to that grain being flown to Europe to be fed to a chicken, to that chicken ending up in your kitchen. The real danger isn't the cooked chicken, but the thawed chicken juice in your sink that contaminates the lettuce for your salad. Then there's Helicobacter pylori, a bacterium that lives in the stomachs of half of all humans. For decades, doctors believed stomach ulcers were caused by stress. But in the 1980s, a determined Australian doctor named Barry Marshall was convinced this bacterium was the culprit. When no one believed him, he did something unthinkable. He mixed up a culture of H. pylori in his lab and drank it. Days later, he developed a severe stomach inflammation, proving his theory. He and his colleague later won the Nobel Prize for their discovery. H. pylori is humanity's oldest pet, having lived with us for over 50,000 years. It can be dangerous, causing ulcers and increasing the risk of stomach cancer. But new research suggests it might also have a good side, protecting us from asthma and allergies by training our immune system not to overreact. But the most fascinating of the bad guys is a tiny parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. It comes from the gut of cats, and its life cycle is astonishing. It needs to get from an intermediate host, like a rat, into its final host, a cat. So how does it do that? It hacks the rat's brain. A rat infected with toxoplasma loses its natural fear of cats. In fact, it becomes attracted to the smell of cat urine, essentially offering itself up to be eaten. This is where the story gets really strange. About a third of all humans are infected with toxoplasma, usually without any symptoms. But scientists started to wonder, if it can change a rat's behavior so dramatically, could it be subtly influencing ours? They started testing people. And the results are chilling. People infected with toxoplasma are significantly more likely to be involved in traffic accidents. They tend to be more risk-taking and have slower reaction times. Some studies have even found a strong correlation between toxoplasma infection and suicide attempts and schizophrenia. This tiny parasite, born in a cat's gut, can subtly influence some of our most complex human behaviors. This brings us to the most profound part of the journey: the connection between the gut and the brain. This isn't just a vague gut feeling. It's a physical, biological reality. The gut and the brain are in constant, deep conversation. Their main line of communication is a massive nerve called the vagus nerve. Think of it as a superhighway running directly from your belly to your head. And incredibly, about 90% of the signals on this highway travel not from the brain down to the gut, but from the gut up to the brain. Your gut is constantly gathering intelligence. It knows what you've eaten, it monitors the hormones swimming in your blood, and it listens to the hum of the trillions of bacteria living there. It is the body's largest sensory organ, and it sends all of this information up to the brain. Scientists are just beginning to understand what this means for our mental health. In one groundbreaking study on mice, researchers found that a particular strain of bacteria, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, could significantly reduce their anxiety and depression-like behaviors. The mice became braver and less stressed. But when the scientists cut the vagus nerve, the effect completely disappeared. The bacteria were literally talking to the brain through this nerve. This has huge implications for humans. Think about irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. For a long time, it was dismissed as a psychological problem. But brain scans of IBS patients show something remarkable. When a small balloon is inflated in their gut, a sensation a healthy person wouldn't even notice, the emotional centers of their brain light up with alarm. Their gut is so sensitive that even normal digestive processes are interpreted as threats, sending a constant stream of negative, anxious signals to the brain. An unhappy gut can directly cause an unhappy mind. The connection works both ways. When your brain is stressed, it prepares for a fight or flight response. To save energy for this emergency, it borrows it from the gut. It reduces blood flow, slows digestion, and lowers the production of the protective mucus lining. This is fine for a short-term crisis. But if you live in a state of chronic stress, your brain is constantly draining resources from your gut. The gut wall weakens, the bacterial environment changes for the worse, and it starts sending its own distress signals back to the brain, leading to fatigue, loss of appetite, and a general feeling of malaise. It's a vicious cycle. So what can we do? How can we become good gardeners of our inner world? Enders offers a simple, powerful framework based on 3 concepts: antibiotics, probiotics, and prebiotics. Antibiotics are against life. They are lifesavers when we have a serious bacterial infection, but they are like dropping a bomb on the ecosystem of our gut. They kill the bad guys, but they also wipe out countless good guys. This is why it's crucial to use them only when absolutely necessary. Taking antibiotics for a viral cold is not only useless, but it also decimates your gut flora, leaving it vulnerable. Probiotics are for life. These are living, beneficial bacteria that we can eat. You find them in yogurt, kefir, and other fermented foods. They can act like temporary workers, coming in to help restore balance, especially after a course of antibiotics or a bout of diarrhea. But the most powerful tool we have, Enders argues, is prebiotics. Prebiotics are before life. They aren't bacteria themselves. They are the food for our good bacteria. They are special types of dietary fiber that our own bodies can't digest, so they travel all the way to the large intestine, where they become a feast for our microbial allies. When we feed our good bacteria, they thrive, multiply, and outcompete the bad bacteria. And where do we find these prebiotics? In wonderful, everyday foods. Things like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, artichokes, and even cold potatoes and rice. When you cook and then cool starchy foods, some of the starches change their structure and become resistant, meaning you can't digest them, but your bacteria can. That cold potato salad in your fridge isn't just leftovers, it's a gourmet meal for your microbiome. The book ends with a simple, hands-on guide to making your own sauerkraut. It's a beautiful closing metaphor. By taking a simple cabbage, shredding it, adding salt, and letting the natural bacteria on its leaves do their work, you are participating in an ancient tradition. You are cultivating life. You are creating a food that is more nutritious, more alive, and more beneficial than when you started. It's a reminder that we are not just passive consumers of health. We are active participants. We are the caretakers of this incredible, complex, and beautiful world inside us. Giulia Enders' journey, which began with a mysterious sore on her leg, leads us to one of the most profound truths about ourselves. Our health, our happiness, and our very sense of self do not originate just in our heads. They are born from the deep and constant conversation between our two brains, the one in our skull, and the equally important one, hidden deep inside our gut. Commentary. Reading gut is a bit like putting on a pair of glasses for the first time and realizing you've been walking through a blurry world. Suddenly, things you never paid attention to snap into sharp focus. A gurgle in your stomach isn't just a random noise, it's the housekeeper of the small intestine doing its cleanup sweep. A craving for something sour isn't just a whim, it could be an ancient, intuitive desire for the good bacteria found in fermented foods. The most powerful lesson from this book, for me, is the radical shift in perspective it demands. We are taught to think of ourselves as singular beings, as me, but Enders shows us that me is actually we. We are walking, talking ecosystems, a symbiotic collection of human and microbial life. And this isn't just a quirky scientific fact, it has profound implications for how we live. It means that our health is not just about our own cells, but about the health of the trillions of tiny organisms that we host. When we eat, we are not just feeding ourselves, we are feeding our inner world. And the choice of what we feed it determines whether that world is a thriving, peaceful garden or a chaotic, inflamed battlefield. This idea is incredibly empowering. It moves us away from a feeling of helplessness, where we are simply victims of our genes or our circumstances. It makes us gardeners. We have the power to cultivate our inner ecosystem. We can choose to plant the seeds of good health with prebiotic foods, and we can choose to avoid poisoning the soil with unnecessary antibiotics or a diet of processed junk. So, how can we start applying these lessons today, in a simple, practical way? First, try the simple trick for how you sit on the toilet. As Enders explains, our modern toilets put a kink in our digestive tract, making elimination difficult. By simply placing a small footstool in front of your toilet to raise your knees, you straighten that pathway. It's a small change that can make a huge difference, especially for anyone who struggles with constipation. Second, become a microbe farmer. You don't have to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Just pick one prebiotic food this week and add it to your meals. Maybe it's adding more garlic and onions when you cook. Maybe it's trying a leek in potato soup. Or maybe it's making a potato salad and having it cold the next day. Think of it as leaving a thank you gift for the trillions of workers inside you. And third, start listening to the conversation between your two brains. The next time you feel a wave of anxiety, or a dip in your mood for no apparent reason, don't just look for an external cause. Ask yourself, how does my gut feel? What have I eaten in the last 24 hours? Did I sleep well? This simple act of turning your attention inward, of acknowledging the gut as a source of emotional information, is a revolutionary act of self-awareness. In the end, Good is more than just a book about digestion. It's a book about connection. It reminds us that our mind is not separate from our body, that we are not separate from the natural world, and that even the smallest, most invisible creatures can have a powerful impact on our lives. Giulia Enders began her journey looking for a cure for her skin, but what she found was a whole new way of understanding what it means to be human. She's given us a map to a new continent, a vast and fascinating world that is not in some distant galaxy, but is, and always has been, right inside of us. That was a summary of Good, the inside story of our body's most underrated organ by Giulia Enders. We've explored some of the incredible highlights today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you hold the book in your hands. It's in the quiet moments, when one of Giulia's charming illustrations or a simple, brilliant analogy hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or resonated on a deeper level, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning facts, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world within you. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.